Well, welcome, Sagebrush. Welcome to our weekly feature where we are going to take a chance to give you guys an inside look into some of the ministries we have here at Sagebrush, into some of our campuses, and to get, to know some of the people here a little bit better. So today I am sitting down with quite possibly the most interesting man on earth. Maybe not that, but like if the most interesting man on earth had a neighbor or a cousin, it would be this guy. And so we are so excited to have Daniel Montoya with us here today. He is the worship team director. Everybody in the comments, say hi to Daniel, enter in some more questions you have for him. Daniel, I want to hit you with a hard question right off the bat, okay?
Sure.
Audrey Montoya, I don't know if you know her or not. She says, first question is, what's it like being so cute and awesome? Just kidding. You don't have to answer that question.
Thanks, Audrey.
So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Sagebrush.
Sure. Well, I'm Daniel, and I am the worship team director, like Eric said, and I am the guy who is in charge of the music, I guess. So, so I get the privilege to lead the worship team and the worship staff and help plan services and pick music and all that kind of fun stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Well, it's obvious that, well, first of all, thanks for coming. It's obvious that people are being blessed by what you and your team get to do here, because we are seeing all kinds of comments about loving the worship. Thank you every week in, week out. They're just so complimentary over the things that your team gets to do and gets to lead. So what we thought would be a good idea is if we got to know Daniel a little bit, and then we'll talk about worship and what worship looks like here at Sagebrush. So first question for you, it's been a big week, I think, for you personally, right?
Sure.
Because earlier in the week, it was May the 4th be with you. And then Revenge of the 5th.
That's right.
Or is it Revenge of the 6th?
That's a good debate.
What do you think?
Synth, they always come in twos, so maybe it's both.
Maybe it's both of them. So obviously Daniel's a big Star Wars fan.
Yes.
Daniel, why don't you tell us what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Favorite Star Wars movie? If you want to go like the real route, what I should say is Empire Strikes Back, because that is the best one. But my personal favorite is Return of the Jedi. Love the Ewoks, love the biker scene where they're in the forest. I remember watching that as a kid, and it just captured my imagination. Love the green lightsaber. Love that Luke is finally a full-fledged Jedi, So that's my favorite.
So we have a question here, another Star Wars question. Promise, for those of you that don't like Star Wars, we're going to move on from that. But another Star Wars question, Darth Maul or Darth Vader?
Vader.
Well,
Vader. My favorite. He's my favorite character of all time. So.
Well, why?
Because it's Vader's redemption story, man. That's the whole thing. The original trilogy, it's all about him coming back and Luke's essentially saving him and bringing him back to the light. I love Vader. He's a great character. So
in addition to Star Wars, you're also a pretty big comics guy.
Sure.
Can you tell us, who's your favorite comic book character, and do you have a favorite comic series?
Sure. It's been, I'll give you two of my favorite characters, one from each, because I know there's some DC and Marvel fans. Love Superman, my all-time favorite. It's taken me a while to get there, because I've read a lot of books, but he's my favorite. And Silver Surfer in the Marvel Universe. So any of those books I can get, I will.
Now, a friend pointed out this to me just before we went on air. If you notice, Superman and Daniel Montoya are never in the same room at the same time. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Nope.
No. So, shifting topics. We know that you're into, Star Wars, you're into comics, you're into all kinds of stuff. You're into denim, obviously. You're wearing hats a lot.
Sure.
But the primary thing that most of them know you for is worship on stage and playing music. So, can you tell us, how did you get into music?
Oh, man, I've been singing pretty much my whole life, as far as I can remember. And I guess I grew up in a musical family, if you'd say. My mom was the music director at our church growing up. My grandmother played piano in the church, growing up. My grandfathers both played guitar and sang and led music in the church. Back before it was called worship leading, it was, it was what it was, the hymnal and piano and organ. But I grew up just singing and loving it, and I picked up a guitar when I was 16 and loved it, just loved it. I couldn't put it down, and I didn't put it down my entire high school career. I was just playing guitar nonstop and singing and trying to write songs and all that. So that's kind of my start. And it's just been since then, forever. It's just been something that I've kind of grown up with.
Sure. And we're obviously, all of us are benefiting for that. Can you give us a rundown of what are all of the instruments that you play?
Really, it's just one. I play guitar. I play electric both lead and rhythm and acoustic. I'd say my strongest is probably acoustic guitar, and then sing as well. I dabble with keys, but nothing very good.
So I know most of us out there know the difference between acoustic and electric, but if you just want to give a quick rundown, what is it? What's the difference in the look, just so we know?
Mainly acoustic is what you're going to see most of us playing like on a daily worship. It generally has a sound hole. It's a little larger. It's an acoustic instrument, so it makes sound without being plugged in necessarily. And electric it's more of a solid guitar, has pickups that it's an electrified sound. You have to have an amplifier to really hear
Make all the rock sounds
Correct.
and all that kind of stuff.
And it does a lot of fun stuff that acoustic doesn't necessarily do.
So why don't you tell us, I mean, we're talking about music here, and usually when we talk about worship in the church, we're referring to music.
Sure.
Can you just break that down a little bit? Like, what is worship, and why do we sing together every time we get together?
Absolutely. Well, worship is not just singing. That is a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, and it's partially because we've labeled music as worship music or Christian music or what you want to call it.
Yeah.
It really is a lifestyle. It's really about showing worth to God, because God is worth all that we are, right? So it's really about our life, living for Him.
Right.
And then the music side of it, singing, is really more about the expression of that in song, right? So when we come and gather and worship, that's the point, is to show God worth through us singing together and doing it together, either as a band or with a congregation when they're there in your living room, wherever it is. It's about showing that worth to God through the songs that we sing. And so that's why it's important, I think.
And so whether it's, in person, which God willing, we'll be back together sometime soon. But for now, obviously, worship doesn't have to happen corporately in an auditorium or in a church. We're seeing that people are doing this in their living rooms, in front of their screens. Can you help us out with like a mindset that when we get ready to sing this song, is there anything that you're thinking, man, this is something that you can do to help get yourself in the mindset for what you're actually about to do?
Absolutely. For me, it's the lyric, right? And as obviously the one who's singing the song, leading the song, I probably spent more time than most people on the lyric, what it's saying, right? But that's really the point of it. The point of the music isn't necessarily how beautiful it sounds. It is about the lyric, what we're saying. So I would just say you've got to try to create a distraction-free environment. I know that's a hard thing to do, especially if you have kids running around or things happening, or the door rings or your phone buzzes or whatever. We're really trying to separate that out, put that stuff down, and just really lean into what we're saying, what we're singing about, who we're singing to, and what those lyrics are conveying, what they're saying about God, the truth that is in those lyrics that we sing.
I think that's such a great point, and that's really why, like, we could have our services on demand anytime, and we do. You could go back, sagebrush.church/watch, and watch any service you want for the past couple of services. But really, we still set up those service times online so that you could schedule in your mind, hey, this is, it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday, and I'm going to make sure we've got breakfast together. Everybody's got their coffee. We're going to put distractions aside, and we're going to focus on what God wants for us for this hour. So, but even if you can't do that, just like Daniel said, like, schedule out that time, even if it's some time on your commute, if you're, still going to and from work or whatever, or our Wednesday night worship times at 7 o'clock, schedule out that time and go, this is a time I'm going to devote to, what did you say about actually showing God His worth, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. And just letting it go and just resting in that.
So let's talk about this, because your team is the one that's really in charge of scheduling our services. That whole program from start to finish, is really under you and the other people that you work with. Can you tell us a little bit about what goes into planning those services?
That's a lot. We look at a lot of stuff. It really starts with Todd's message, what he's teaching on that week, and then we have a team that we try to craft. We have pitch teams, is what they are. They're people, they look at Todd's sermon, they read through it, and then they go, okay, these are songs we think would fit with this. Here's maybe a feature song or a song that's not necessarily meant to sing corporately, but we think it ties really well to his message, or it emphasizes a point, something like that. And they put together a set of songs, and then try to come up with creative ideas, videos, whatever that may be, and we work through that together, and then we take that into Todd and our planning team, which includes our creative and production and worship, obviously, and we try to craft something that we think really honors God with what we're trying to do and helps people understand, hopefully in a greater and a deeper way, either who God is or an attribute about Him, whatever we're teaching on that day. So that's really kind of how we do it in sort of a nutshell. It's a little bit longer of a process than that, but
So question for you in the comments, because I think this will be really helpful for us and helpful for Daniel and his team, is like, what is one of your most memorable experiences that you've had in worship, over the past couple weeks, couple months, even couple years? If you just want to maybe it's a song, maybe it's an element or a story or something like that, enter that in the comments, let us know, so that way we can help encourage, and really his team can do that as well. So basically the way you broke that down, just so I'm understanding, everybody else is understanding, it's not like you're in a room and you're figuring it all out all by yourself, or you're like Moses going up to the mountaintop and waiting for God to deliver, or it's not like Todd is giving everything. It's really a team effort, right?
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Our worship pastors are involved with that. They're bringing songs that they might hear. They might see something on YouTube, or a new song came out from Passion or some artist, and they think it'll work. And so they bring it to us, and we listen through that, and we're like, okay, yes, we like this. Lyrically, this is something that we can stand behind. We really put a lot of emphasis on that. What is this song saying? Do we believe that this song is scriptural? Does it land on what Scripture's saying? Does it really paint a picture? Is it confusing in any way?
Right.
If it's confusing, even if it may be kind of, there's a lot of truth there, but it could potentially be confusing, we'll kind of stay away from those types of songs. We want songs that are very clear and depict God in a correct light, and then we'll use those songs and add them to pitches and try and move things forward, depending on how that works out. But yeah, it starts with our team, and it goes to creative and production, and Todd eventually is in that, and we all try to work together to craft a service together to make something that hopefully encourages people, points people to God, and leads people to a relationship with Him. So
so it goes through a lot of different layers, and I heard you talking about, especially if there's a song that might be controversial or confusing.
Sure.
Like, there have been several people who have gone through this process, prayed about it, and really thought through it.
Correct.
Anything else that goes through picking worship songs? Obviously, it's not like just a favorite one off the top of your head, or what you heard on the radio.
No, it could be. You might hear something on the radio, and they're like, "Man, this song's really good. We think this could work." Or it might just be the fourth or fifth song on a record that most people aren't going to get to, that just spoke to you, and man, this is the truth. It could be something based out of Todd's message. We know we're coming into a series on whatever, fear. Okay, this song deals with that. Maybe this is a song we need to introduce at this time. It could be a ton of different factors. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're looking for the best songs that we feel God has given us to utilize and worship for Him in the church.
So a couple of responses here on some favorite moments. Love the testimonies, Amazing Grace. Another in the Fire has been mentioned a couple of times here as well. So those are all some great moments. Please enter those in down here in the comments, so that way we get a chance to see some of your feedback. Together by King and Country, it says, Won't Stop Now. Rolling Stones, the Lauren Daigle thing, that was great too. But that brings up a good point too, is that we're not always singing overtly Christian songs.
Sure.
There are, you talk about feature songs. What are the things that would go into maybe singing I remember a couple weeks back, it was like Tom Petty, Won't Back Down. What goes into picking those songs, and why are you picking songs that wouldn't be considered Christian?
Sure. And there's a lot that goes around the word Christian music. Music is music for me, right? It's really what the content is, what that lyric's saying, whether it's, quote, good or bad, right? The chord progression, the way it sounds, like there's nothing inherently good or bad about that. It's music. And so for us, we look at lyric, we look at moment, and we look at how does this tie? Like that song, for example, Won't Back Down, it was really, Todd was talking about a defiant faith that week. And we're going to stand strong in our faith no matter what comes our way. And that song kind of encapsulates that feeling, right? No matter, you can stand me up at the gates of hell, and I'm still not going to back down. Like, that was the idea. So when it comes to a feature song or a secular tune that we may use, really it's not about the artist or any of that stuff. It's more about, does that song emphasize what Todd's teaching? Does it point to what he is saying? And hopefully the next time somebody hears that Tom Petty tune, they might remember what Todd said that particular weekend, and it reminds them hopefully of some biblical truth in their life the next time they hear it on the radio. So those are some of the reasons we use some songs that aren't Christian.
Yeah, and I love that point too, because it seems like, now this isn't a blanket statement for everything theologically, but it's almost like, do you believe that God has the power to utilize this thing in a way for his glory?
Absolutely.
You know, so I think that's great that we're able to do that, and you know, not to be cliche, but like redeem some of that as well.
Yeah.
You know, not that that's our job, but it is definitely different when you're thinking about, you know, somebody said here, you know, one of the secular tunes, like, I hear that song in a whole new way now.
Yes, that's part of the idea behind that, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully it makes somebody that's an outsider, somebody who doesn't come to church, right?
Sure.
They've never been here before, and they come in and they hear a song that they might hear on the radio. Hopefully that's disarming a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they might be more open and receptive to hearing the message of Jesus. Does that make sense?
That is a perfect point, because I know, especially for me dealing with marketing and communications and talking about how we're trying to reach people, and I know for you, if there are people in your lives that either do not have a faith background, or they have a faith background and it has not gone well for them, then the idea of walking into a church, there's so many objections to start off with, and you walk in with this preset mindset that they're going to do this or that or anything else, and now all of a sudden I hear Tom Petty, and I hear it done well, right? Because not everybody can do some of these songs well, and I think, you know, at all of our campuses, the teams put a lot of work into doing it well, so that way some of those objections come down, and now it's like, okay, maybe I'm open to what God has to say to me today.
That's right.
So let's see, we have another question here. If somebody does want to join one of our worship teams at our campuses, you know, what is the process for getting onto that team?
Sure. And, you know, we are always looking for people. We need help. You know, there's plenty of campuses. We need plenty of musicians. The easiest way to do that is on our Sagebrush app. You would download that, and under the resources page there, you can click on that, scroll down to worship, and right there's an application and a place for you to go ahead and link a video. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So we just look for anything. If you're a singer, sing your favorite song, the song that you know you sing the best, and on your phone, attach it, send it to us. If you play guitar, same thing. We're not looking for any particular song at the beginning. You know, we're just looking to see, does this person have some general skill that
Just get an idea.
see where they're at. And if you know, if you're not quite there, then we'll give you some suggestions on this is how we think you can improve to get to a point, you know, and if you are like, hey, this person we think's ready, then we'll take you down further on the process and bring you in for a different live audition and give you some things to work with and that sort of stuff. But yeah, for us, it's all about utilizing people that have that gift and want to use it in the church for God's glory. So if we can get them in, we'd love to have them. So absolutely. It's on the app. Again, easiest way to do that.
And there are some complications, obviously, now with social distancing, other things like that. But I know your team is working on making sure that we can still serve people well when they're trying to join the team, even through all that. So that's going on too. So in along those lines, I know there's probably either some parents or some young musicians out there, parents of young musicians. Can you tell us what is some of the most valuable advice you were given as a young musician, and also probably just a young guy starting out in ministry?
Sure. Man, the biggest thing for me, and I tell a lot of our team members this, you know, you don't always start out in music like doing the thing that you necessarily love to do.
Yeah.
You know, there's been seasons in my life where I've been the guy who's just kind of held it down in the back or done whatever I need to do, right? But I always go back to that story that Jesus tells of the wedding. And he talks about a wedding, and there's you can take the lowest seat or you can take the seat of honor, right? If you take the seat of honor, you might be dishonored because the wedding party is going to ask you, oh, that's not actually your seat. You got to go down here. But if you take the lower seat, right, then you'll be honored if they go, okay, you got to go from here. Actually, your seat's over here next to the wedding party. And so for me, it's always been about that, right? It's about the humility. And that's a hard thing as an artist because you're on a stage a lot and people say nice things to you a lot and it can get to you. Yeah. But that's always been in the back of my mind, man, if I can take this position, whatever it is, I don't care what that position is. I know that God's given me a gift to use this music. If that means that it's for one person or a million people, it's still, I want to give the best for God, no matter what, even to an empty room with a bunch of cameras every week, you know, like it's still for him. And that's the whole thing. If there's any advice I give you is work hard. Like music isn't easy. It doesn't just happen. Like it takes hard work and dedication and practice. And when you think you got it, more practice. That's just how it is. Yeah. And just be humble, you know, and God will give you those opportunities as you move forward and as you continue to progress. So yeah, that's what I would say. Man, practice. Yeah. Dedication and hard work is what it takes.
Yeah.
So.
And the one thing that's coming out here, if you are all probably hearing this, is just Daniel's heart and how humble he is. And I mean, I will say this as somebody who sitting here with him, I see him on screen and I see him walking around the office. That's who you are, is humility. And so we've had a lot of comments, people in here just talking about how much they appreciate you and your humility and your attitude. And I know the attitude that is just pervasive throughout your team. So all of our worship leaders, our musicians, just really, it's obvious that they're picking up that leadership and that example. So here's what I want you to do in the comments. If there's a song, Daniel might not like this, but I'm going to do it anyway. If there's a song that we don't play that you're like, hey, we want to play this song, or have you heard about it? Just drop it in the comments, or if you've got your own song, something, just drop those songs in the comments, because we'll look at them and see, what other songs that we could play here too.
Love that.
Before we close, Daniel, is there any encouragement or anything that you want to say to people out there? Anything on your heart?
Man, I just say thank you. Your words of encouragement are huge. This has been a hard season for everyone, and you guys know that as much as I do. And I miss you all. I miss seeing you. When we're singing out to that room, I was telling the planning team yesterday, it's empty, right? There's cameras, and we're doing our very best to sing to God. But I look out at those seats, and I see you, and I miss seeing people in the seats. And I remember who sits in this chair and what group of people sits over here at the 5:30 and whatever. So I just miss that, and I miss you guys, and we're hoping sooner than later that we can get back to it. But thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for the kind words that we hear in the comments online, and it means a lot more than you think, and it keeps us lifted up to keep doing what we're called to do. Yeah. And so thank you very much for all you do for us, your encouraging words, and keeping us lifted up in prayer. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to echo that too. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. And I want to say thank you to Daniel. So go ahead and let him know in the comments that you appreciate him being here with us, taking some time just to let us know about what goes on. I mean, behind the scenes, because we get to see the finished product, but we don't always get to see the hearts behind the people that do it or the reasoning why we're doing those things. So let Daniel know how appreciative you are of him. If you have a worship leader at one of your campuses that you want to appreciate, tag them in the comments.
Absolutely.
Let them know how much you are thankful for all the things that they're doing to continue to bring this worship to us, even though we're just in such, quite frankly, weird times right now. Mm-hmm. So, Daniel, thank you. I want to remind everybody here that tomorrow we are going to be featuring what we're calling Sagebrush News, where we're going to bring you some good news and stories, uplifting stories from around our communities. So don't miss that at noon. And then next week, we're going to start all over. Monday, we're going to have a message discussion. Tuesday is going to be question and answer with Todd again, which I love that segment. Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday, he's going to bring us his weekly devotional, and we'll be sitting down with somebody else in the seat. So last question for you. If you want us to interview somebody else, if there's a campus, if there is a group, if there's anything going on that you want to know more about here at the church, write it in the comments, and we will see if they're available. So on behalf of Daniel, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you this weekend.